Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
And welcome. This is your host for today's show. I am b-alan-bourgeois. And with us we have b-n-carman. And he is going to be talking about his various collections. He has currently one book out with several more coming out, and he has quite an interesting story to tell involving powers and other fun things. Welcome, B-N.
Hi, Alan.
We're glad you're with us. So right off the bat, people know that they should write what they know. In this particular case, you're writing about stories with theology, psychology, science. What is your background to allow you to write in those subjects?
Well, I'm writing about people with powers, so I've had experience with powers. No, I'm just kidding. I've had a lot of background in psychology. I've done a lot of study for many years on theology, psychology, and many of those subjects. But for about 5 years, I worked with people who had multiple personality disorder, and you don't hear much about what goes on with those people with that condition because the world of psychology doesn't acknowledge the things they experience in this inside world. And this is like another world that's as real as this one is to you and me. And they experience that other world. And it's bizarre, very interesting, but it spawned some interesting book characters and series. So those will be coming out eventually.
You mentioned right off the bat that they live or experience that world. How can they experience it different than what we experience?
So they have separate or alternate personalities. They call it alters. And their alters live in this other realm. Could call it another dimension, however you want to, identify or whatever you want to call it. But we usually call it the inside world, or it's part of the system. And they can step through a door perceptually, I guess, internally in their, you could say mind, but who knows what's really going on. But they step through this door into that other world, and then they can walk around in it and experience it just like, I'm walking around right now talking to you. And it's almost just like this world, except it's not industrialized. It's just as natural as everything is here without all of the buildings and houses and things like that. And that's where their alters live, their alternate personalities.
So from a normal, and I hate to use that word, but from a normal concept, which is what most people live in, okay? They can't see or do those type of things that you're describing, but at the same time, while we've put certain words on it which indicate that they have some kind of mental disorder, could it also be a reality that we just don't fully understand that these people are living in? I
tend to think that's what it is, because when you start looking at the things that they see in there, without it ever being suggested, all of them see certain things the same. Like they'll see angels and demons, and they'll see God, and it's bizarre because they'll describe the angels the same way, and there are three types. They'll describe this God that they see in there the same way a lot of times, but it's really bizarre. And I always make sure, or when I was working with them, I wouldn't tell them what they're supposed to see in there. I'd let them see it on their own so that it's not being suggested, and they would see this stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. But there are other people. There are certain belief systems where these small groups will meditate, and they're trying to go into the inside world, different realms. I don't know how similar it is to that, but There's the people that do that, and they're not multiple, but some of them, very few, can manage to do it. And they'll go commune in there. Like they'll see one of the other people in there, and they'll start, working in that world. People who are multiple, I've seen cases where one person's altar from another system will come into the person that is being worked with. It didn't happen with any of the cases that I worked with, but it's somebody that we know about, and they come in and start working. One of their altars comes in and starts working in this person's system. So they're skipping systems, like skipping into that dimension. Don't ask me to explain it. I have no idea. It's bizarre.
Well, this definitely gives you a lot to use for writing a wide range of things. Your particular book, Winter's Edge, which is the one that's currently out, you have this little caption here that says, using powers can aid you, kill you, or drive you mad. So clearly you're pulling that from working with these people. Is that right?
Well, actually, no, not on that one. Now, eventually it may play into that storyline. Actually, I know it does eventually, but I don't want to give too much away because I have a lot of twists and turns, so I just leave it at that. But the powers in that story, I wanted there to be heavy consequences for using them, so that there's something that they're not overused. They're not just, hey, let's use our powers right now. I mean, they have to really think about this before they do it, because if you overuse your powers or use them too much, or well, I guess that's overusing. If you use them too intensely, things like this, you can, age yourself suddenly, or you can burn yourself out, kill yourself immediately, or you can just start going mad. You can do it slowly, you can do it quickly, but you could go mad and start killing people. And there are heavy consequences to it. I wanted that to be a good tension point of the story, figured in heavily in what they do throughout the story. Plus, you don't have them using their powers a ton throughout the story for that reason. So when they use them, it's interesting and it's, necessary. So it's not just they're using them constantly, like in a lot of books with people with powers.
Now, by chance, and you had no idea about this prior, and I really didn't either prior to our conversation, one of my books is called Spirit Never Dies, and it deals with people who have powers and how, the consequences of using those powers. So I understand where you're coming from as far as showing what can happen if you use the powers either in a negative way or over too much and stuff like that. So I fully understand what you're saying. But at the same time, for the average person, how can you help them relate or help them understand a little better using something that's current or modern, that's out there now that they may be aware of?
I'm not quite sure I understand your question exactly. In what way? What's something that's out there now? You mean some book that's out there, or something in real life?
Book, movie, anything.
Something to relate it to. Man, that's tricky. I have not even thought about that, really. I guess, so if you were to take, say, like the X-Men and make them just regular people, not superheroes that are going out to save people, and instead they're just trying to survive and keep out of the public eye so that nobody knows they exist. And you add in a little bit of Incredible Hulk, where if you get angry, something bad's going to happen with your powers coming out and you can't control them. That's more of how these people have to deal with their powers. It's a lot about anger control and fear control, negative emotion control, so they don't let loose with these powers suddenly, because the main character, Ian, he doesn't even know what his power is at first. He just knows it comes out of him when he's 5 and nearly kills his sister and wrecks their home. And, it pretty much just scars him for the rest of his life. And then when the story starts shortly after that, he's 8 or 17 and graduating high school, and people are hunting him down, and he doesn't know it. And he finds out that day, and he's on the run. And then he ends up in a city, unwittingly ends up in a city where built by giants before the flood. And there's tons of people with powers. Everyone there except for one person. And the one person without powers is the one he's interested in. So, it's most of the story will take place in that city. And when the murders start happening and people start pointing the finger at Ian, then it starts to get real out of control real fast toward that point. But it is lots of twists and turns in that one.
Now, you have this classified as a fantasy, action-adventure love story for teens and adults alike. And Abby seems to be the yin to his yang. Is there a reason why you chose to do two opposites being attracted to each other?
Opposites in the
Abby doesn't have powers while
no
Ian does.
Right. It's just it's fun to have somebody that doesn't have any abilities and has this contrast to him because they just have very different views of things. Where the city, she's grown up in the city. She was born there. She's the only person that was born there, and she loves it. At the same time, she wishes she could be in the regular world or in the rest of the world with everybody else, and she could be since she doesn't have powers. Whereas, so it's kind of like in a sense, a prison for her, and kind of, but all of her family's there. And then for him, it's this sanctuary because he can finally be free and let people know he has powers, whereas before that was a big secret. People would come looking for him if he ever told anybody, and the government would, experiment on him and things like that. So I like the contrast of the two characters.
Okay. We only have just a few seconds left, so if you would be kind enough to let people know where they can find your book.
Well, it can be, you can find it at b-n-carman.com or on Amazon.
Okay, and of course at books.txauthors.com, we have it there as well. And if people wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
Through my website is probably the best way. I suppose I could be reached on Twitter too. I would say go through the website. I can be messaged there pretty easily.
Okay, and that was b-n-carman.com. And we will step away for our commercial breaks, and we'll be right back.
Howdy, I'm John Cruder, the Midnight Marauder. I guess you might say that I'm a vigilante who rights the wrongs I see along my many travels to balance the scales of justice, especially those of the corrupt and murderous members of the Town Council of Bandera, Texas. You can follow my many adventures in a series of Midnight Marauder books written by Roy Clinton on Amazon.com and TopWesterns.com. Or, if you prefer, listen to my adventures in audiobook form by downloading them from Audible.com or iTunes. This is R. William James, the voice of the Midnight Marauder.
A new online bookstore, IndieLector.store, is unlike any other. IndieLector.store offers great prices from top indie authors and supports authors at the same time by paying them more for their books. IndieLector.store has a readers club that gives you free books and special deals. Watch the IndieLector.store continue to grow before it opens in the fall of 2019 at IndieLector.store. Headlines. Cryptocurrency vultures are circling around failing governments. Darknet predators are rushing to market with their newest digital product. They promise economic salvation, even as they coupon clip straight from your digital wallet. The newest techno-thriller installment from Breakfield and Berkey, The Enigma Source. Book 10 of the Enigma series continues the combat of cyber good guys versus cyber thugs set in today's digital landscape.
Do you love to read great new ebooks? Visit ebg247.com. Be the first to discover the next bestseller. At ebg247, we have the web's largest selection of great new book reads, from that amazing new fiction or nonfiction to horror, romance, and fantasy. We even have today's best children's books. That's ebg247.com. New books arrive daily, and all ebooks start at just 99 cents. If you love to read, then you'll love ebg247.com. Low prices, large selection, and an easy-to-use website. It's all only at ebg247.com.
Texas Authors is proud to be a supporter of IndieBeacon.com, a website that supports indie authors from around the world. If you are looking for help with marketing or getting published, IndieBeacon.com can assist you. Years of experience by the founder is available to any indie author looking for help. IndieBeacon.com, a place for creative souls to find help in marketing their creations.
Bourgeois Media and Consulting, a book publishing consultant where creative inspiration is realized. More at bourgeoismedia.com.
Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
And welcome back. This is your host, b-alan-bourgeois. We are talking today with b-n-carman and talking about his book, Winter's Edge. When we left off, B-N, you were talking about the aspects of the having powers, not having powers, and things of this nature. Is this one of those type of things that you're going to end up with a series for?
Yeah, this is book one in the series.
And tell us about book two. When's it due out, and what's the basics on it?
Book two keeps getting pushed back. That one's taken me a while to get through. Just a lot of things in the way. But yeah, I'm hoping I can have it out early next year. But I don't want to make any promises yet, just in case.
Do you have a name for it yet, or a working title?
I haven't quite decided yet. That one might be called Winter's Fall, but I'm not sure yet for sure.
It's definitely a challenge to write.
Yeah.
How many books are you anticipating seeing in this series?
What was that?
How many books do you anticipate seeing as far as the series for this?
Originally, this was supposed to just be a 3-book series, but I do a ton of research, and the more I do research, the more ideas I come up with, and I'm like, I can probably put out a lot more books in this series with some of the new subjects I've been researching. So I may keep stretching this one out because it is a lot of fun, and the characters are well fleshed out, and the settings and everything. So I'll probably do more than 3. I'll probably do several.
So with the researching that you're doing, are you coming up with other types of stories or other types of genre books to write or anything of that nature?
Well, I have 3 main books that I'm working on now. There's Winter's Edge, of course. There's one called Soul Jumpers. That's a future. Couldn't exactly call it a dystopian. It would be, in a way, a dystopian, utopian book that is sci-fi and urban fantasy about, well, I can't say what that one's about because it's one of those ideas I can't let out. But that'll be interesting. That was probably one of my best storylines there. But and then I have another one about a detective. He's actually a police consultant. He was ex-CIA, ex-military, and he has multiple personality disorder. So he's interesting too. That was originally going to be a TV show, and the Soul Jumpers was originally going to be written as a movie, but I decided to go ahead and do them as books first because I like writing books. But maybe someday I'll get those into screenplay and teleplay form.
You never know. Somebody may enjoy them and say, here's the contract, let's make it.
Exactly. That's what I'm hoping for.
Now, it's interesting you mentioned the CIA consultant, and we'll use that word, who has multiple personalities. So back to our earlier conversation of the people you've worked with, are you applying some of that aspect of being able to go into his mind and see a world that we're not knowing and used to as part of his way of dealing and finding the crimes or solving them?
Yeah. Well, okay, see, almost every person I worked with in that 5 years of working with multiples, they were what's called satanic ritual abuse victims. So these are SRA victims for short, which means that when they were very young, sometimes right after they were born, they were abused by Satanists. And these people know exactly what they're doing. They know how to split these kids and then program the alternate personalities. They split them with abuse. It's pretty horrific, but and the character that was done to him when he was a kid. And so there's a satanic shadow government that he's working against, and his father is heading. And so he's going after them while hunting down a serial killer at the same time. And the serial killer just happens to be killing the same people he's going for right before he gets there. So it's a real big conflict. And so what he does is, in a lot of these shows you see on TV nowadays, is you see a lot of flashbacks or in movies. It's not flashbacks for him. He goes into the inside world and then will go into those memories because certain alters of his are stuck in those memories. So he has to go in and save those alters out of the memories, the alternate personalities, and get information from them or other entities in there so that he can find or try to track down the serial killer. So it's a different use of backstory. Or a different way to
based on what you just said, what I find kind of interesting is that it almost sets the story up to where one of his alternates could be the serial killer that he's chasing.
That would be cool, but I'm going to ixnay that one pretty early on. So, yeah, because that one's like, yeah, I mean, you see that, like, he keeps trying to get there, and it happens, and how the heck is it happening before he gets there, right before, things like that. But but yeah, that would be interesting.
Okay. With the research that you do, are you one of these type of authors that has a lot of note cards posted up all over the place so you can create each chapter based on all this information?
Well, what I do is I throw my ideas in a folder in my email, and I'll copy them down in there and I'll put them in the folder, but I'm working on them in my head when I do that, and I'm integrating them into the story. And then I eventually just get the story so well integrated in my head I don't need any of my notes. But I'll go ahead at some point and go back through them again, see if I forgot anything, or if I want to add anything back in, stuff like that. So it's a lot of it's in my head. But I have the notes there just so I don't stress about forgetting something.
Cool. So you mentioned the 3 books that you're working on. Are there any other projects or anything you're working on?
No, just those 3 right now. I'm sometimes coming up with stuff just in my head that I might do later. But for the most part, it's just those 3 stories right now.
Yeah, when those ideas pop in, I'm sure you're writing them down and saving them for later. We all
yep,
do
exactly. Because I throw tons of stuff in that folder, and then what I'll do is I'll suddenly come up with a great storyline, and then I'll go back into that folder and start looking at all the ideas, and I'll figure out which ones I can throw in that mix really well with that one. That's how I created Soul Jumpers. So that one, like I said, that one's a fun one, but I wish I could say something about it, but I can't.
Now, a lot of us that are published authors and some that are in the writing stages know that our characters talk to us. And so I'm kind of curious with your background, being in psychology and dealing with those that have multiple personalities, do you ever hear your characters talking to you, and do you ever wonder, okay, am I starting to turn into one of my clients?
Yeah, I'd have to go start working on myself if I heard them in my head. No, I'm always the one voicing my characters in my head. But yeah, I've heard of people saying that before, that their characters talk to them, and who knows how they mean it. But I mean, one could call it characters talking to them if they kind of let their mind go with how this character would react in this situation, and you can hear them in their head. But maybe some people's characters really do talk to them. I don't know. That would be interesting to explore with somebody that has that phenomenon going on.
One of those scientific studies yet to be done. We have a couple minutes left, and I would like it if you would please remind everybody where they can find your books and how they can reach you.
So let's see. There's Amazon, and you can find it at b-n-carman.com and at txauthors.com. They're a great resource, and there's a lot of other books on there too. Explore and look around. And they're a great marketing resource for writers too.
We greatly appreciate you saying that. They're one of our biggest sponsors. So with that in mind, in the 2 minutes we have left, what words of advice do you have for somebody who wants to be a writer?
So they're just starting out and they want to be a writer. Man, practice like mad, and make sure you have somebody that can get eyes on your work, that knows what they're doing, another writer and a writer's group. That's probably what helped me the most at the beginning. I had somebody cut my work down, and they cut something like 6 pages into 2 pages, and I was like, holy moly. But that was a big eye-opener, because I learned how to cut down my work and make it real tight, and that was very helpful up front. And then just tons of studying and practicing for a few years while I was writing the first book. Those are by far the best ways to start out.
Did you write any short stories or anything of that nature?
Only when I was entering some quick, like, flash fiction contest to learn how to write very tight. But that's it. I'm not usually a short story person. I do have one short story that can be found on Wattpad, and it's called The One Within. It's a future sci-fi that's off of my Soul Jumper series.
Yeah. Well, we have been talking with b-n-carman. And again, you can reach him at b-n-carman.com. His book, Winter's Edge, which is considered as an urban fantasy action-adventure / love story for teens and some adults alike. And it has this very interesting aspect of using powers can age you, kill you, or drive you mad. And with a gentleman who's worked with those that may be considered as mad, I'm going to take his word for that. So I thank you very much, B-N, for being with us, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much. It was great being here.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website at indiebeacon.com.